Good morning, one and all. Thank you for being with us. Now we're going to shine a spotlight on two foundations which are already well known by some of you. We've got 20 minutes together. We'll try to be efficient. Talking about Terra Océan and Plastic Odyssey. We'll talk about seas and oceans with both, and these two foundations are working to protect the oceans with different and complementary approaches, as you'll explain. We've got Romain Troublé, Executive Director of Terra Océan, and Simon Bernard, CEO and co-founder of Plastic Odyssey. Let's start with you, Romain Troublé, to talk about Terra Océan, which is 22 years old now. What was the starting ambition? Good morning, one and all. Can everybody hear me? Is that working? No, it's not working at the back. They can't hear me. I should speak louder. Okay, yes. Okay. Good morning, one and all, indeed. I have been leading the Terra Océan Foundation since its creation 22 years ago by two founders, Agnès B, doing clothing, nice clothes in Paris and worldwide, and her son, who decided to buy this boat, Tara, a 36-meter schooner that belonged to great sailors like Peter Blake, who died on board, and Jean-Louis Etienne, 36 years ago. And in 2003, we weren't talking about sustainable development or the planet that much, and so we wanted to talk about the seas to the French people and organize expeditions with researchers, and over time, research has become the cornerstone of our foundation, and on board our boat, we organize research missions that last 1 to 3 years non-stop around the world. We had 13 such expeditions. On board the ship, we've got CNRS, CEA researchers from all the world, usually 10 to 15 countries, to understand the planet, the oceans, and we traveled 500,000 kilometers, the distance between the Earth and the Moon, in 20 years. Well, precisely, Romain will get back to that, trying to explain the main missions. 22 years ago, 2 boats later, 52 recruitments later, 15 missions will focus on the missions about awareness raising and education. What are you doing for that? We do research, and via research, well, research is good, but you need to speak about research. If you don't explain research, it has less impact on people, on you, and on politicians. So the first pillar of what we do with research is to tell stories to young children in French schools, even French schools abroad. About 200,000 students every year have curricula to understand the sea, sustainable development worldwide, also in geography class. Geography is important. We don't have enough geography lessons. I was surprised to see my children grow up without learning too much about the planet's geography. There was even a high school exam on biology and earth sciences 2 years ago, and so that covered Terra Océan. Yes, you became well known with that. Yes, so we reach out to children. 2.5 million children we've talked to the sea about. There's a whole team behind me. You've got sailors and 30 people on land in charge of communications. And the other thing is to speak to the press, tell stories about research, how it's done. For a researcher, being at sea is their bread and butter. But usually we don't go further away than 10 meters from the shore. After that, you start panicking. So research is at sea, it's their bread and butter, but it's a crazy endeavor being at sea. And so you need to talk about that, your doubts, your fears, and it's important for them to do that. And we also take resident artists on board Tara to share about their emotions. What's really engaging is not science, but emotions, fears, and people's life stories and backgrounds. And so the third main pillar at Tara is policy. We welcomed Ban Ki-moon on Tara in 2012. He was then Secretary General of the UN, and that's when we became strongly involved with multilateralism in the UN. We became a special observer at the UN. We can attend all the COPs. We got accreditation to all the COPs. And we try to also raise researchers' profile. We bring researchers and scientists on stage. Also, we attend the side events because in the main negotiation room, people read speeches, but the real negotiations and talks happen in the side events. So we share about research and research is important because we don't know a lot about oceans, but we have a strong impact. We'll talk about plastic a bit later with my colleague Simon. But the climate, to me, is the #1 disruptor. Climate temperature. Climates have become 1 degree hotter in the last 70 years. 1 degree is not much, but 1 degree, it's like when you get a 1 degree fever. If you wake up in the morning, your temperature is higher by 1 degree, you feel bad. And so 1 degree is huge for the ocean. That will have an impact on the ability that oceans have to do everything they do for us, storing carbon and releasing oxygen. And your insurers, there are major risks associated to oceans. Now, with what little knowledge we have, it's hard to price this risk. And so the challenge in the future will be to support fundamental research as much as we can to be able to price risk better in the future.
You're referring to support to research. Where is the funding coming from? Well, this is a public agency. So we have the European Commission, we have the French CNRS. The boat, however, have been funded privately. You have family offices, people like you and me, that support the project. And then 50% companies such as AXA, BNP Paribas, L'Oréal, Agnes B. And we're looking at about 8 million euros a year, 50 employees for the Tara Foundation. And of course, we're looking for partners. If you have an interest, we'll take you there. Yeah, there are many projects that need to be funded. What's on the cards? Well, the boat that you saw on the screen there, we just got delivered a month ago. I mean, there were lots of trucks this morning, but this is more a boat. It's rather a boat. Anyway, that boat just left the French shores from Lorient, arrived 2 days ago in Lomsburg. That's a polar base, and so this boat doesn't look like anything we've seen before. It's been doing okay in this weather. We don't know how it will cope with the with storms, but it will go in the icy waters of the North Pole from the Strait of the Bering Straits. It will drift about 500 days, a year and a half, going around the polar circle, sampling ice. This is the only polar ocean where you have 4 or 5 months of night during the year, where life goes on somehow. And we have most organisms that live out there somehow managed, but the North Pole is a sort of a laboratory of climate change because the global warming is happening a lot faster there than elsewhere. And so this is a laboratory of what will happen to the rest of the world. The boat will go to Southeast Asia afterwards in December. Well, no, we have another boat that will go to Southeast Asia. I'm sorry, it's not the same boat. And here we find that the coral reef somehow has resisted there, whereas coral reefs in other parts of the world are vanishing. So that's a positive development. Of course, we're happy to see that. We'd like to know why, how come. So we're using molecular biology, DNA, all sorts of microscopy, and in fact, we have medical technology used for that. And then the same boat will go to the Antarctic. So there are many projects ahead trying to explore the oceans and see what we can do. So I'll give you the microphone to Simon now. Talking about Plastic Odyssey, that's a more recent operation. I mean, well, you have been around for 20 years. You started, no, Plastic Odyssey started in 2016, whereas the Terra has been around for 20 years. So anyway, you used to work for the Merchant Navy. What prompted you to start this adventure? Well, first of all, I'd like to say hello, everyone. What triggered all this? I used to be an officer in the naval matron. My job was to navigate, to be on boats. But at sea, you cannot see the plastic pollution because it's not out there. It's microparticles. You don't really see them. But when you shore up, when you go on shore, then you can see the pollution firsthand. I remember going to Dakar in Africa. That beach used to be one of the most beautiful beaches in West Africa. And it was quite a shock. And I thought to myself, what can I do with my background, with sort of a technical background, an engineering background, to find solutions and see how that can help in countries of the global south? Why is it so urgent now? Well, the numbers speak for themselves, but you're talking about 20 tons of plastic being thrown in the ocean every minute. The numbers are staggering. The volumes are mind-boggling. You're talking huge volumes there, and a large part of the waste is incinerated out there. Some of it ends up in the ocean. And sometimes I mean, you have here a waste land in a waste heap in Guinea where they just burned the thing, and then you have 5 billion tons of plastic waste that has been generated by mankind. It's like a legacy that we somehow had to deal with. Among Plastic Odyssey's mission, you're talking about recycling, reducing. I mean, both are urgent. What do you do? Well, we were crazy enough to purchase a 50-year-old ship. We spent 3 years refurbishing it. It was not easy. And in 2022, we went on. We took the seas with that boat to try solutions how to reduce the plastic waste. That's the front part of the boat. In the rear part of the boat, we recycle it. You set an example for people around the world. So we've been going around the world 2.5 years now. 35 stops now. The ship is in the Indian Ocean near the Comoros. And each stop, again, we're more interested in countries of the global south. And we have 3 lines of action. Number 1 is reduction. How can we stop using plastic in the first place? And so you have Taha and other players, international players, maybe come up with a plastic treaty to stop the use of plastic worldwide. Then local solutions, and this is a scientist in Mauritius turning agricultural waste into seeds. Or at least fertilizers, and so like banana skins and all that, so you can avoid using plastic. So you can use this to not to natural fertilizers, but also to replace the plastic jars. Here we were able to save 25,000 plastic bottles in 2 years. So that's like 1 ton of plastic for just ourselves. I mean, avoiding to have one use or single-use plastic bottles. I mean, we did it, just the crew on the boat, and you can certainly have this example followed elsewhere. So we can reduce the impact of plastic. And what we're doing is we have these micro recycling plants that can hold in a small container And this is a high-value model that you can make it a good business model for developing countries in Senegal and the Philippines. And so with a good business model, so you have the non-profit part of our activity, but then we have some funds, but the idea is to create 200 plants by 2030. These, so 100,000 tons of plastic processed and recycled, and it's 100,000 jobs right there. And it's a profitable business. And then awareness raising, education, yes. We say that one child will raise awareness in 6 adults. I read a new word where it's reverse parenting, where children teach their parents. This may sound like a joke, but if you have younger people being taught and shown how we can live without plastic on board our ship, we're not quite at zero plastic, but getting there. I told you about the plastic bottles we've stopped using. And then the life of an explorer going around the world without plastic. We have this school program called the Explorer Apprentices, and that has been validated by the Ministry of Education in Senegal, in Africa. And that's a powerful tool to raise awareness amongst the youngest generation, and they see, we set an example for them. I was going to ask the same question as for Tara, where does the funding come from? I mean, you have public subsidies. I suppose there's some, I believe that you have an investment fund as well? Ah, yes. Well, we're trying to find profitable business models, if at all possible, to process waste locally without depending on philanthropy, on patronage. We are trying to have a system that can depollute UNESCO sites, so, I mean, heritage sites, World Heritage sites. Well, there, of course, it is more private partnerships and philanthropy. The island of Anderson last year, that was one of our expeditions, one of the UNESCO natural heritage islands. It was known to be filled with plastic, impossible to clean up because there was a coral reef that was difficult to circumvent. Nobody had managed to do it. And I can show you briefly what we were able to do. It was a crazy idea, but that's what we did. We used a climbing parachute to get the waste to go over, to fly over the coral reef. We couldn't have helicopters because you have protected species. And we found a solution to lift the plastic weight. 9 tons of plastic from that island were lifted, airlifted. There was one technique that we used others, and we thought, well, that was a good start. We should keep going. We have a partnership with UNESCO now, and our job is to remove pollution from 25 priority islands of the UNESCO Natural Heritage List. That's 0.5% of the land surface, but it's 20% of the blue carbon, 15% of marine biodiversity is there. So this is a priority area that is all covered with plastic. We have just 1 minute to go, and for both of you, your closing words, your state of mind. I mean, you spend most of the time at sea. Are you confident? Are you optimistic? I mean, there were some positive developments. I mean, you have the Southeast Asia where the coral reef is being resilient. What would you say? Well, look, I'm of two minds. Naturally, I tend to be an optimist, and I try to focus on all the good solutions, on all the good examples, and we can see that if you leave nature alone, after a while it can regenerate, and that's good, that's positive, but the downside is that every day we find another example of pollution, plastic pollution or other kind of pollution. I mean, you have dynamite fishing, would you believe? I mean, in Indonesia, that's pretty nasty stuff. And so, on the one hand, there's hope, but also real concern about what's happening. I tend to be optimistic as well, and of course you have to be if you get on that, if you get involved in this, otherwise you'll give up. When you find that the Paris Agreement hasn't really been respected, but things are changing. You have many companies that are doing something to help change. You talk a lot about decarbonization. It's all very well, but You must not forget biodiversity, likewise climate, they all go together. So decarbonize, deplastify, that's the future. And of course, we have to encourage those that can go faster. In spite of economic challenges, these are the companies and these are the players who will benefit from this first. You have to say what's going on. You have to say on a daily basis, we can see sometimes you lose track of things. And then, or you lose interest, but you have to keep the course, to stay the course. All right. Well, thank you for these very inspiring testimonials. Thank you to both of you. That was very